Coming up on the Angus Report, how high-altitude disease research could help ranchers better select adaptable cattle.
Tips and tricks to beat the heat this summer.
Learn about new programs from Angus Source.
And we hear from the association's summer interns about their experiences. This is the Angus Report. Welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Clint Mefford. Today, we're talking about high-altitude disease.
Allie Ludy has more.
High-altitude disease is to blame for significant cattle deaths in high elevations. Tim Holt is an associate professor of clinical sciences at Colorado State University and recently spoke about the disease at the Beef Improvement Federation in Loveland, Colorado.
One of the big things, when you come to Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, Montana, Idaho, even parts of California and other places, we live in such a high elevation. Like our cattle right here are at 5,000 feet. So they're under constant stress of hypoxia, a constant stress of elevation. And why do ranchers care of that? This is a heritable disease. So those that have a genetic predisposition to this can respond very well. And losses in the cattle industry in this area is probably our number one loss. It's probably the number one etiology of death in our high elevations. And it ranges from a normal year. Ranchers will tell me they expect to lose 5% of their calf crop to high altitude. And then you have all the other losses contributing to death. Clear up to, I've seen death losses. I have an example today to share with everybody of 117 out of 400 calves died of high altitude disease in 1 year. So it's an extremely important disease in the beef industry and what it does in the death loss.
Pulmonary arterial pressure testing can help farmers and ranchers find and select for cattle that are better adapted to survive high altitudes. Holt explains what PAP means.
PAP stands for pulmonary arterial pressure, and what that is that is the mean pressure, and pressure is just like our blood pressure. It is the mean pressure of the pulmonary artery, and so it tells us if an animal is experiencing pulmonary hypertension. And if we go back and we look at human medicine or we look at cattle medicine, pulmonary hypertension is secondary to some kind of pathophysiology, something going wrong in the lungs and or the heart. And what I study is what altitude does that and how altitude causes that in cattle.
Holt explains his hopes for the future when it comes to high altitude disease.
Yes, I can treat an animal that has this disease. I can use all sorts of medications. I can use oxygen therapy. I can do all that. But ideally what we're trying to do through PAP testing, because PAP testing is an indicator of the possibility or probability that there's genetic carriers of this. So we couple that with an EPD, which is what groups of people are working on. We can actually look at a rancher and say, this animal has this chance of surviving in altitude, and even more important, it has this chance of passing this gene on or not passing the genes on. When we put all that together and we look, how are we going to do all that? I mean, I think the biggest thing is working together. That's why I've had so much fun at this meeting, because every breed is here, every association is here, and we're talking about how does this breed compare to that breed, where does that? So I think the biggest thing is that we need to continue researching it. One of the big things that we need to do is we need to go into the human medical field as well. And right now we're working with UC Denver and Kurt Stenmark and his group and Dale Brown and their group, because they have the same interests as we do. This is a disease that impacts humans and the cattle industry. And so working together with them and working together with all the breeds and not just one breed here and there, I think is where we're going to go with this.
Thanks, Allie, for sharing the story. The sweltering summer heat is still upon us, and many parts of the country are experiencing a drought. Several states, including Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado, are experiencing severe to extreme drought conditions. The hot weather is taking its toll on livestock, and producers need to keep an eye out for heat stress signs to provide adequate care. Although the summer season will end soon, it is still important to care for the land and livestock as the heat continues. Eldon Cole, a livestock specialist with the University of Missouri Extension, says providing shade for beef cattle is important during the summer months. Recent research has shown natural shade from trees resulted in better animal performance than shade constructed from shelters. He said 25 square feet per adult cow is a bare minimum for shade space, with 30 to 40 feet preferred to prevent crowding and poor air movement. Additionally, Cole said fertility appears to drop in hot weather, so shade may benefit producers this breeding season, and reducing heat stress can help increase pregnancy rates. Cole also said slick, short-haired cattle grazing warm season grasses will suffer less production loss than those on endophyte-infected fescue. Heavy cattle traffic around trees can kill trees and may result in poor manure distribution, so manage accordingly.
Chuck Backus is a PhD nuclear engineer and solar energy pioneer who retired from Arizona State University to focus on his cow-calf operation. And he recently shared Drought Advice based on his own experiences.
Our main ranch that we've had for 40-some years is in the Superstition Mountains east of Phoenix, which means I'm in high foothills, rocky, cactus-covered, lots of rocks and canyons, and most of our pastures, maybe 7 square miles of canyons and rocks. And so just finding the cows is a challenge sometimes.
Backus presented on breeding and selection for large western ranches at National Cattlemen's Beef Association Convention in February.
We do a lot of water development, and by water development, if we have a spring or a well someplace, we may run polypipe these days for miles and miles with a drinker. So many of us will have several miles of pipeline to distribute the limited amount of water. And we do have dirt tanks to collect water and so forth, but that requires rain. And it's better to have wells. The wells are 500 to 600 feet deep. Sometimes you go 600 feet and you don't hit any water. So when you do hit water, you try to distribute that water around. And so the dryness is an important thing, and the feed efficiency is important.
Backus says feed conversion efficiency is important to maintain the health of the animal in that brutal climate. A strong herd that can adapt to your climate will help you manage drought conditions.
The Endangered Species Act has been a tense issue among cattle ranchers, especially in the West. And on Thursday, July 19th, the Trump administration brought changes forward that were met by comments from all sides. Ethan Lane, Public Lands Council and NCBA Federal Lands Executive Director, commented on how important these changes are to Western ranchers.
For producers in the West that operate with federal grazing permits, the Endangered Species Act is always kind of right at the top of the list of things that we focus on, mainly because it's such a convenient weapon for the environmental community to use to reduce numbers across most of the Western states. Over the past couple years, we've spent a lot of time working on a set of recommendations to Congress from the Western Governors Association that would inform them in a process of doing some reforms to the Endangered Species Act. You know, if you fix NEPA and the Endangered Species Act, you would probably solve 90% of the problems we have for Western ranchers. So this is a big deal. And it has its tentacles in everything else that we do. And if you trace back any other problems that people are dealing with their permits, or even their private land that's adjacent, and you know, increasingly into the Midwest with the lesser prairie chicken, and getting into the upper Midwest with the northern long-eared bat, and now we're looking at monarch butterflies. You know, these ESA issues start to trickle into everything else that they do.
Lane spoke on the important role cattle producers play to protect the environment.
It's important to remember we're not trying to stop any conservation from happening. We want to make sure the law works properly. And we know that as cattle producers, you know, we're putting more conservation on the ground in a larger volume than basically anybody else on the landscape. The way the ESA works now, we can't do that. Most of our guys have their hands shackled because it's really more about box checking and you know, showing the environmental community, whoever else, that you know, they're paying enough penance for being on the land, so to speak. So what we want to do is get it dialed back to a point where we're actually getting conservation on the ground to the species that need it. ESA, NEPA, and reg reform are our hot button issues for this year, and you're going to see a lot of kind of laser focus on those. And as an industry, as busy as we all are, we need to take a minute every day and make sure that we're making our voice heard as well to get that point across that we're out here and this is important to us.
Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service are responsible for implementing the Endangered Species Act. And after publication in the Federal Register, the services will take comments for 60 days. Some speculate many groups will ask for more time. Stay tuned, the Angus Report will be back with industry updates after this. Welcome back to the Angus Report. There's a lot going on at the association and in the agriculture industry.
We go to Rachel Robinson for some industry updates.
The new association feeder cattle program, Angus Link, had its first beta test calves sold at the Northern Video Summertime Classic sale in Billings, Montana. There were 16 lots from 14 consigners in Nebraska and 4,037 head sold. All 16 lots sold well with an average premium between $4 and $10 per hundredweight versus other calves in the sale. After a strategic review of Elanco Animal Health, Eli Lilly and Company has announced it will file a registration statement with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Eli Lilly and Company is filing for a potential initial public offering of a minority ownership stake in Elanco as a separate company. And a new National Junior Angus Board was selected during the National Junior Angus Show last month. Chairman Sidney Gherkin and Vice Chair Madison Sunsbach lead the new National Junior Board officers. Visit angus.org for more association news and highlights.
We check in now on the latest cattle market news with our market update, brought to you by Cattle Facts.
Hello, I'm Patrick Linnell with the Cattle Facts Update. During the first half of the year, the feeder cattle and calf market has been strong, with prices steady to above year-ago levels. This is on top of surprisingly strong calf prices during the fall calf run last year. Year-to-date, U.S. average 750-pound steer prices have averaged $148 per hundredweight, $7 higher than last year, while 550-pound steer calf prices have averaged $13 higher at $176. The bulk of the year-over-year difference came during the first 3 months of the year, and prices have generally held steady to firm since then. Strong prices were supported by an estimated supply of feeder cattle and calves outside of feed yards that was down over 600,000 head compared to 2017 as of January 1st. Feed yards were also coming off a streak of solid margins and strong profitability, which was supportive of feeder and calf demand. Looking to the second half of the year, the July 1st USDA cattle inventory report found feeder cattle and calf supplies 200,000 head larger than 2017. This means that feed yards will have more cattle to choose from, but it's also important to note that this is the smallest yearly increase in the feeder and calf supplies since the beginning of this expansion cycle. So far this summer, feeder cattle prices have been moving seasonally higher, with potential for improvement into the mid-150s during the mid-August to early September time period. From there, feeder prices are expected to seasonally decline into early 2019. For calves, expect prices to seasonally decline from the summer into the fall, with some improvement later into winter. Calf prices tend to find their lows in the late September to October timeframe, when the bulk of spring-born calves are weaned and sold. Calves selling in the summer video auctions for fall delivery have shown strong values so far, with 500 to 600 pound steers in the mid to upper 170s. While calves forward sold during the summer tend to bring the strongest prices during most years, this is a positive indication for potential calf demand during the fall run. Nonetheless, the seasonal still indicates prices lower into the fall, with an average decrease of 12% from the summer cash highs to the fall cash lows. This makes it important to consider different marketing options, including forward selling, value-added programs, and retaining ownership. For the Angus Report and Cattle Facts, I'm Patrick Linnell.
To learn more about Cattle Facts, your leading source for beef industry market information, visit cattlefacts.com.
Next on the Angus Report, we talk to Johnette Gottsweiler, Angus Source Director at the American Angus Association.
After a break, she shares more about the new Angus Source programs. The association recently announced 4 USDA process-verified programs that are now available through Angus Source. Angus Source Director Johnette Gottsweiler has more about the programs.
Angus Source is an age and source verification program through USDA. We have added NHTC, which is a non-hormone treated cattle program, so those calves would not have had any added growth promotants to them. Never Ever 3 or Verified Natural would also include calves that do not have any antibiotics, whether that be in the feed, injected, or in the water. They would have absolutely no animal byproducts in those, so that would be whether from poultry or mammals. They would not have any growth promotants in those as well. Then we did the cattle care and handling, which would need a BQA certification. Those calves would be handled humanely through those BQA standards. Again, that's going to increase the consumer confidence of those calves once they get in the marketplace. Also, we added calf management, which would be a calf health program. So we're going to be documenting all those shots at weaning and branding time so that those potential buyers will know exactly what those calves has had and hopefully make them healthier so that once they hit that feed yard, they're not going to need to be doctored again just because. It's been very successful. In the last month, we've already enrolled over 10,000 head and did multiple NHTC Never Ever 3 cattle care and handling and calf management enrollments as well. So it's been very well received. Part of our long-range plan was to become more of an industry leader, not only for Angus genetics, but also for the cattle industry. And so that would be one of the reasons that we've chosen to add those extra programs to our lineup here so that, we can obviously help all commercial cattlemen become successful and realize that extra value. Last year, some of the data that we had received showed that there was around a $3 to $3.50 return on those calves enrolled in a non-hormone treated cattle program. During this year already at some of the summer video sales, many of the people are saying that value-added programs have brought anywhere from $5 to $10 a head, possibly up to $25 a head more. But as you can tell from those recent video sales, the numbers have been very good. If you're unsure if you would qualify for any of these programs, I would definitely say to call in and visit with the Angus Source department. Determine if it's something that you would qualify for. I would definitely start several months in advance so that if you do qualify for some of these programs, you'd be able to put that documentation together and start keeping those records. It's very important that producers do keep those records and kind of embrace the program as they begin that journey. So when you're having calves, give us a call.
Angus Source enrollment simply requires producers to fill out an enrollment form and submit copies of their calving records. Now, depending on the program, an on-site review might be required before a producer enrolls. Visit angus.org or call the association to learn more. And we'll be right back with the Angus Report after this.
The American Angus Association works hard to cultivate the Angus breed's next generation. The internship program does just that. This year, 7 students were hired to get a glimpse of the business behind the business breed.
I'm Megan Silvera, and I am the editorial intern for the Angus Media Department.
I am Chloe Fowler. I am the intern for the Communications Department.
My name is Whitney Wilkinson, and I'm an Events and Education intern.
My name is Megan Green. I am working in the Editorial and Communications Department this summer.
I'm Andrea Garcia, and I'm an intern with AGI.
My name is Madeline Bauer, and I'm an Events and Education intern.
My name is Rudy Polk, and I'm an Angus Foundation intern.
So in my internship, I have had the opportunity to write a couple of different articles for the Angus Journal. I'm going to be working on a feature story for them hopefully soon in the upcoming weeks. I've also been a reporter for the Angus Report. That was interesting. It was really fun to do at junior show.
I visited the farm with one of the AGI girls that work here. We went to this farm to visit because even though I was working with the data, I would never see the animals, right? Because I don't really need to. The data is all here and all I need to do is sit down and work on the computer.
I got to experience a lot more than I ever thought I would. When I heard editorial intern, I was like, so I'm gonna be reading a lot and maybe writing a few things. But I've probably wrote upwards of 15 articles for the Journal and the Bulletin. And I've also gotten to speak to so many influential cattle producers. It's just blown my mind how much I've been exposed to.
Lead conference is something that I was asked if I wanted to attend before I really understood what I was getting into. I'm going to be focusing on taking candid photos and trying to do social media, and then also a lot of videography.
We're going to Billings for our LEAD conference, and I've actually never been to Montana, isn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah, gosh.
So how many cups of coffee do you think you drank during your internship?
Oh, I guess.
Oh, I drink like 2 cups of coffee a day.
Well, we can do some calculations there, but.
How many cups of coffee have I had?
2 a day, at least.
Can easily go through 4 or 5 cups a day.
So I'm averaging usually about 3 cups of coffee a day.
And you guys have pretty good coffee here, by the way.
Well, I'm a coffee drinker. Whitney's not. She's like Herbalife and like all this.
I love Red Bull, and so I've drank several cases, but I'm trying to use healthy energy drinks now.
There's been a lot of caffeine consumed. I know it's something you probably think I'm going to say because I'm here at Angus now, but I have wanted to work for the American Angus Association since I first got started in the business.
This has been kind of a lifelong dream of mine to be able to come and work here and be a part of the breed that's been in my family forever.
I called my mom and I was like, I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to be as good as everyone else is. And they've really taught me that I am able to do great things, and they've taught me just to tackle everything that comes my way because I can do it.
They want you to leave here with a great experience and some knowledge that you didn't have before.
They taught me about beef cattle in general because this was the first time for me working with beef cattle data. And then, so that alone was a big deal for me.
You don't feel like an intern. Jacqueline and Caitlin do an absolutely amazing job of instilling confidence in you and trusting you to run an entire project by yourself. I've been included in a lot of important decisions like the planning for next year's journal, and I just feel really blessed that they would let me as an intern play such a key role in something like this. I would say that this summer I've grown as a professional more than my 3 years that I've attended college and any other internships.
You know, we're really proud of our summer interns this year. They do a great job.
They sure do. Now keep your eye out for applications for 2019 for your chance to spend a summer learning about the Angus breed.
That's all for this week's Angus Report. We'll return next week at this time for more cattle news and highlights.
Now in the meantime, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Angus TV, for more from the association. Thanks for joining us.